How's it going, my Total Dog family? Dog Boss here, owner of Total Dog Vegas. And I want to take this time today to thank you for signing up for one of our training packages. Today, I'm going to cover the remote collars, which is included in your training package. Your training package came with one of two collars. We use the brand Dogtra, and for the smaller dogs, we have the IQ Mini. And for the larger dogs, we have the 280C. The 280C has a half-mile range, and the receiver and the remote are waterproof. This also has a digital dial on it. The major difference of the IQ Mini for the smaller dogs is that the range is only 400 yards. It is also waterproof, however. All right, so let's go over what's inside the box. So when you open up your box, the first thing you'll notice is the owner's manual. You'll have your charger. You'll have your collar. Your remote. And lastly, the belt clip. The content in the 280C and the IQ Mini is exactly the same, although they do look a little different, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Now let's go over charging. To charge your 280C, you're gonna take your charger, which has a splitter attached to it. You'll grab your remote, and on the back of the remote, you'll see that it has a rubber piece covering the charging spot. And the reason why that's there is because this is waterproof, so we wanna make sure that we're not getting any water in the charging dock. You'll take this end and put it in the back of the collar or the remote. You'll take the collar, which also has the same rubber piece, pull that out, plug that in there. And now you have both pieces. And all you gotta do is plug this into your wall outlet and you're good to go. For the IQ Mini, it's a little bit different. You have a two-piece splitter here as well, but for the actual collar, you have a clip. So the way that that works is you have your collar here. You are just wrapping that around, and you can see that it clips right in. Then you'll take your remote, which has the rubber piece, pull that out, plug it in, and just like the other one, plug this into your wall and you're good to go. Now let's go over how to turn these on and off. We'll start with the 280C. To start, grab your remote, and on the side of the remote, there's a blue dot. You're going to hold that down for a couple seconds, and then you'll see your digital analog box turn on. Next, you're going to pair the remote with the collar. Both the remote and the collar have a red dot. Pair the two red dots up together, and then you'll see that they're paired because this is blinking green. Now that collar is turned on. Both the remote and the collar are ready to use. Now let's cover the IQ Mini. The big difference between the IQ Mini and the 280C is that this does not have a power button on it. So all you have to do is pair up the male and female red dots. You'll see the collar start blinking green, and now you're good to go. To turn these collars off, all you have to do is the reverse. So you're going to pair the red dots on the IQ Mini, and now you'll see no more blinking. The difference from the 280C is that you have to turn off the remote with that blue button, like that. Digital dial goes off, then you're gonna pair the two dots. No more blinking. Now the collar and the remote are turned off. Now let's cover the buttons on the remote. I'll start with the 280C first. On the side of your remote, you have the blue on and off button. Then if you go to the front of the remote, you'll see your pager button, which vibrates the collar, and also your digital analog box. If you go to the other side of the remote, you'll see your Nick button, which is the top button, and your continuous button, which is the bottom button. And we'll cover how we're going to utilize those later on. Next, on the top of your remote, you have your digital dial, which turns your setting up and down. Now we'll move over to the IQ Mini. The IQ Mini is a little bit different. There are no buttons on the side. All your buttons are going to be on the face of the remote. So on the top, you have your Nick button. In the middle, you have your continuous, and then your bottom button is the pager. And remember, there is no on and off button for the IQ Mini remote. And then lastly, your dial for the IQ Mini is on the face right here. And the only difference is that this does not have a digital analog box. Now let's cover how to properly put it on your dog and the proper placement of the collar. So when we put these on our dog, it's very important that they're nice and snug. If they're too loose, we're not gonna be getting the results that we want with these collars. It's very important that the actual contact points here are making contact with your dog's skin. Now, we don't want it so tight that the dog can't breathe, but if we have it too loose that these contact points are not making contact with their skin, then it's not gonna work in the desired way that we're utilizing it. For the placement of the collar, we wanna have it below the prong collar. So if your dog is wearing a prong collar, make sure the prong collar is highest up closest behind the ears, and then you'll put your remote collar below that. And if your dog is wearing a flat collar, then that should be below that. When we put the collar on your dog, we want it either on the left side of the neck or the right side of the neck. We want to avoid right here because this is where they have a lot of sensitive spots. So we'll keep it here and here and never put it on the back of the dog's neck either. Now let's cover some safety tips and some general rule of thumb. The first thing that we need to cover is how long to keep this on your dog. It's very important that the dog only wears it when it's supervised. If you're not gonna be home and you're not gonna be around your dog or at nighttime when your dog is in the kennel, then there's no need to have this collar on. It's important that if this collar is gonna be on your dog all day, that you move it from side to side. Our rule of thumb is if the collar is gonna be on longer than 4 hours, then to switch it to the opposite side. The reason why I wanna do that is because we don't want the dog to get any irritation from wearing the collar for multiple hours on end. Certain breeds and certain dogs do have allergic reactions to the stainless steel on the contact points. If you notice that while your dog's wearing this, please let your trainer know right away because we do have some hyperallergenic contact points that we can switch out for your dog. That way they can continue to use this awesome tool. The last thing we'll cover is actual settings and how to utilize this tool the total dog way. So as far as the setting will be dictated by your trainer at your lesson when you start introducing the remote collar. But it is important that this goes up to levels up to 127, and the IQ Mini goes up to levels as high as 100. When we utilize this the total dog way, you'll notice that we're using it at extremely low levels. For instance, my Belgian Malinois works at a level 4 out of 127. Lastly, the way that we utilize this tool, the total dog way, is by keeping the dog's attention on us throughout every command that we give. So when we give the dog a sit command, we're gonna pair that with hitting the Nick button. That's just a reminder to keep the dog's focus on us throughout the training. And lastly, when we utilize the continuous button on a low setting, we can utilize that to speed up the dog's command. So if we're working on recall and teaching the dog to come to us, we can tell the dog come, hold down the continuous button until the dog gets all the way to us. So it helps speed up the desired commands. But like I said, this will be covered at your lesson with your trainer, so don't stress about it. Once again, I just want to thank you for being part of the Total Dog family. Thank you for signing up for one of our training packages, and don't forget, train hard.